Welcome to the Power of Design podcast, where we have inspiring conversations that explore the intersection of architecture, construction, and real estate, so we can understand the dynamics and trends that shape an exciting and powerful built environment. This is your host, Jack Osa. In today's episode of The Power of Design, I will be chatting with Nicole Campbell. Nicole is an office leasing broker with Divaris Real Estate in Hampton Roads, Virginia. Nicole is a go-getter. Switching from residential real estate to commercial broker, she quickly established herself as an expert resource to her clients and community, leveraging the power of social media. I was inspired by her story, tenacity, and ability to embrace change in new situations. We talk about her life, commercial office leasing, diversity, and much more. This is my conversation with Nicole. Nicole, welcome to the Power of Design podcast. How are you today?
I'm amazing. Thank you so much for asking. I hope you are as well.
Yes, thank you. So, Nicole, I know you help your clients lease ideal office space for their operations, whether it's from the tenant representation side, helping them find space, or from the building owner side, helping them find tenants. With the current situation we're going through, what do you think is the biggest challenge your clients are facing today?
So the challenge that my clients are facing and looking at the landlord side is obviously that a lot of tenants have stopped their search or put it on hold. So while the beginning of 2020, things were super active, it looked like it was going to be a banner year. We had a lot of stuff in the pipeline. And for my landlord clients, a lot of that just dried up. And so we're seeing that tenants are really planning on waiting until even the beginning of 2021 to resume their search or to resume even their renewal process, if they've been in that process as well. So on the landlord side, it's unfortunate that they just are not seeing what they thought was going to be, again, a banner year. And then on the tenant side, we're seeing that some landlords are not as willing to put capital into the space. So what they thought maybe they were going to get as far as tenant improvement allowance, the landlords are wanting to hold on to that cash and asking tenants to put more into it. So it's definitely shifted things. Nothing that we could foresee at all was going to happen. And it's everybody's, dealing with this. So luckily everybody understands.
Yeah, it's been interesting because when you look at any business, usually the second biggest expense after payroll is going to be your space. And it's such a big ticket item. And with the uncertainty, people are really hesitant to make decisions to, just to move forward. I had a project where I was working with a client. They were going to expand their office space. They even purchased a building. And we were in the very beginning stages of the projects, and the project got canceled, but it was because the client realized that his staff was doing really well working from home. So when I talked to him again, hey, we're going to keep working on this project. He said, well, actually we're doing really good. I don't really see the need to expand anymore. So that was very interesting. Nicole, tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up?
I'm an Army brat. So I grew up all over the place. My parents are from Texas, and we have kind of been all over. And then when my dad retired from the Army, we went back to Texas. And so that was when I was about 12 years old, I guess. I had lived all over the place. And then when I turned 12, we had moved back to Texas. And then after I graduated high school, I left. So I was only in Texas for a few years. And I just kind of claim all over for where I'm from. And so when I left home at 18, I joined the Army. So I don't really have a place where I'm like, yeah, this is where I'm from. It's a little different story, I guess.
Yeah. So what happened after you joined the Army?
So I did that for 3 years. And in the meantime, I had met my husband and we had some kids. And so we traveled all over as well. We got to spend time in Germany and Ohio and North Carolina, Colorado. And then we ended up in Virginia. And so Virginia Beach is where we retired. My husband retired from the Army a couple of years ago. And so this is now where we've kind of made our homestead. Our kids have gone to school here for quite a while and we love it here. So I guess now I claim Virginia Beach as my home. Yeah.
Cool. How did you find your path to the commercial real estate world?
So it started with being an Army spouse and having the luxury of trying a bunch of different things because we moved around a lot. And I first started in residential real estate. And so I didn't know anything about houses, and I worked as a transaction coordinator for a small residential real estate team. And as we moved around and got to Virginia Beach, somebody suggested to me that maybe my personality would fit a little bit better with commercial real estate than residential side of things. So that's how I got started in it. Is that somebody else saw that the way I do business is a little bit different than how people buy houses, because that's super emotional. And I'm more of a like, well, what's the money? What's the bottom line?
Right.
So yeah, that's how I got started in it.
That's interesting. There is a huge difference between, residential and commercial world, not only in the brokerage side, even from the architecture side.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at just construction types and methods and how you build a house is just a whole different world. And even when you design it, and I think that's why even the International Building Code is divided into commercial and residential, because they just hold different areas. So tell me about your experience in the residential real estate. How was that like?
So it was good. I enjoyed it. I love real estate in general. And so, like I said, I started out as a transaction coordinator and I eventually got my license. And then I worked as the director of sales and marketing for a new construction team. And so I was pretty much the liaison between the home builder and then the brokers who brought the buyers to us. And so I would do all the negotiating and everything. But then I had the head of the team was kind of the face. And so he would go out and talk to people and kind of drum up new business, where I would sit behind the desk and do all the negotiating and then do some of the marketing work and everything. And so that part of it was a little bit different. I wasn't out beating the streets looking for clients or anything, but I was still doing the real estate work. And so when we moved to Virginia Beach, I decided, okay, well, I can do this. It's just a matter of, it was a different role when I was in North Carolina. So I decided to go out and start working as an actual agent. And so I did that for a while, and really my heart wasn't in it, again, because of, showing somebody 10 houses and they walk into every one that checked the box that they said they wanted to check, and they couldn't get past the wall color or the toilet, or, you know what I mean? So, and just overcoming that part of it. And I understand completely. It should be an emotional decision because it's where you're going to live. But it was just one of those things where I thought, if I'm not loving what I do, then I can't provide the best service that I can to my clients. And so luckily somebody suggested to me, there's this other world out there that I think you would be a perfect fit for. So I'm so glad I made the change.
That was great advice, because how many people get stuck doing something that is not, I think is what I call is the sweet spot, where your biggest strength matches your biggest passion.
Exactly.
So you're doing those two things at the same time, and when you're in that space, you don't feel like you're working. You feel you're just doing what you like, and you're using your strengths to create value for others, and that's a really good place to be. That's nice. That's self-awareness and taking action based on that. So you start working on the commercial real estate world. How was that like?
So I, again, didn't know what to do or how to get started. And I found a job opportunity with a commercial firm called Divaris Real Estate. and they were looking for an administrative type of role for their office leasing team and working directly with one of the owners of the company. And he heads up that office leasing team. And then there were about 7 brokers who needed administrative and marketing assistance. And so I thought, you know what, this is the perfect way to learn the business and see the behind the scenes, because that's what I did with residential as well. And I could get to see all the personalities. I could get to see all the background work, how the leases looked and the letters of intent and just the whole process, listen to the phone calls the brokers were making. And so I did that for a couple years. And after one of the brokers in my office, her partner was moving on to do something else. And she said, Nicole, I think it's time. Like, let's do this. I want to partner up with you. And I jumped at the chance. She's amazing and she has been a fantastic mentor. So being able to, I think, start with her and not just go off on my own, because I know some people do that. They get right out of college and then they just, go into it, and they maybe don't have a really strong partner who's been in the business for a long time. And that's what I was able to latch on. And really, I've learned so much, well beyond what I was able to learn just sitting behind the desk, because she's amazing and it's been a phenomenal experience.
That's awesome. What do you think is the characteristic you have that is just makes you willing to try new things? You're not afraid to let go of something else, and you kind of see the opportunity and your mind is already at the next level, and I'll do it. I just need to take the first step.
So my personality is, for better or worse, that I just jump into things. And so my husband is very analytical, and he takes a lot of time to look through all the details and make a decision. Where I see something, I'm like, let's just do it and see how it goes. And if this doesn't work, then we'll adjust and we'll make a decision how to change things. But that's kind of like my underlying personality trait. And then from there is just, I think, being open-minded and having experienced a lot in my life, so many different places I've lived, different types of jobs that I've had. And like I said, I call it a luxury of being a military spouse and getting to try new things, but that's really forced upon you. But I think that's helped me just say, you know what, there's so many other industries to learn from. There's people who are doing things that maybe they're not happening in commercial real estate, but it could be some sort of best practices that I can take and kind of figure out how I can use that in my business. So I think it's a combination of that just let's do it personality and having that experience of just kind of being all over the place has come together, and just it's been perfect right now.
That sounds like my wife and I are very similar in terms that she's the one that makes decisions really fast. And I say, okay, let me think about it. And we're like, what are you going to think about? Let's just do it.
Yeah.
So it's always like interesting finding that balance, because sometimes I realize how to think things too much might be just a waste of time. You might miss the opportunity, which is my default setting. And her default setting is just, let's do it. Come on. And it's interesting because then you try to kind of see the situation or the decision. And sometimes I just, I'm going to trust that, just go whatever she says. And sometimes it's great. I mean, I'm glad I've listened to her many times, because the decisions have been great. And now she's also learning to understand how I think. And there's some decisions that she will be patient and say, okay, let's wait.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
she checks on me like every other day. Did you think about it? Is it ready?
And that's the same thing that we've found too over the years, because we've been married for 20 years, and it's where I've gotten more analytical, and then I understand, the process because I've seen him do it, and it's so close to me. Instead of seeing, hearing about a colleague being analytical is one thing, but seeing it actually happen and play out is completely different. So yeah, it's that teamwork, right? It's very important to have those.
Yeah, and it's interesting because from my side, like, I don't even know why I need the time. I just need the decision. I take the facts and I just put them in my brain in a pocket, and I don't even think about it. It's just like letting it marinate for a while. Mm-hmm. like in a week or 2 weeks, or I don't know, there is a day when you come up with like, okay, got it. This is it just
Yep,
like shows
exactly.
up. It's very interesting. Tell me about your current role at Divaris Real Estate, which, now that I think about this, about 8, 9 years ago, I used to work at a firm that did a lot of retail work, shopping centers, mixed use. I was once in a meeting with Gerald Divaris
Oh, yeah.
here in Charlotte. Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
that. I was a young architect at a firm and we were doing a lot of retail, and I know he was there. I think he was wearing a purple suit.
I'm sure he was. Gerald is very almost flamboyant and very stylish. And so Gerald is one of the cousins who started the company,
Yeah.
and he's on the retail side. And Michael is the other cousin who I worked for, and he's on the office side, and he's a little bit more subdued. And that, I think, is the perfect explanation for the difference between retail and office.
Yes.
I mean, it takes those different kinds of people, and you can just tell by the way they walk around the office who does what.
Right.
So it's funny that you will never forget Gerald Divaris. That's for sure.
Yeah, that was interesting. Cool. So tell me about your role and what you're doing there at the current time.
So when I got started a couple years ago into the brokerage side, I was kind of taking on any business I could find and did a lot of tenant rep work, mostly all office, but a few little retail deals here and there. And as I've progressed, I've found my niche in helping landlords get their spaces leased. And I think it comes from that, outside the box thinking, let's try new things. Let's have a fresh set of eyes from somebody who's not been in the business forever and done the same old, same old. And so I've been very successful helping those landlords just figure out ways to make their spaces more marketable and get more eyes on, and then ultimately get those spaces leased. So most recently, I was awarded, I guess you could say, a role on this large portfolio that Divaris, they were able to capture this ownership group and their business. And so they have 5 buildings in Hampton, Virginia, which has traditionally been not a struggling market, I guess, but a little tougher market. And they saw the potential and the value that I could bring there. So now I have those 5 buildings in my portfolio as well. I think I have about 20 some odd buildings that I represent within the area of Hampton Roads, which is a 7-city. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Hampton Roads and the cities that go into that market, but I have them all over. And that's been, again, like the way that I figured out to bring value to the area, because we've got brokers who've been in this market for 20, 30 years and everybody knows them. And so I think when they see what I'm doing on social media or just in my marketing in general, and then how I'm able to relate to them, that they really want to bring me on their team and help them get their spaces leased.
Yeah, that's awesome. I follow your content on LinkedIn, and it comes across so authentic and so real. And I think that's one thing that everybody is looking for, because I think in general, social media, it's not transparent. It's so full of people pretending to be something they're not and trying to impress others. But your content comes across very like real, like this is it. And even like I've seen it's very educational. Sometimes you talk about light fixtures or plumbing fixtures and things that could help. To me, that's very interesting. Like for me as an architect, I'm like, oh wow, yeah, that's what I should be thinking about. And those might be things that a very experienced person in your industry might not see. Like for them could be very typical things that happens, but they don't want to bring it to the surface or talk about it. But the fact that you want to talk about it and bring the conversation to your industry, it really creates a new way and a new perspective to see things, which I think is like by default, you're creating your personal brand and you're showing people what's that unique differentiator you bring to the marketplace. And that's key to understand.
Exactly right. And that's what it was, is that because I was newer to the area and new to the business, I had to let people know, as many people as possible know how I am in person. And you can go to so many events and only meet 2 or 3 people and not get that out there. And they will maybe just see a picture or just hear your name and not understand what you're about and what knowledge you do have. And so that was so important to me, to be able to have more of a, just really explode with people knowing who I was and the type of person that I am. And so I have, when I'm, I guess I don't look very approachable in person because I look very serious.
Why do you say that?
Because I have, when I'm not smiling, I look mad, I guess. Okay. So since I don't look super approachable, then people are not necessarily going to come and talk to me, or might think, one thing about me and not know anything. And so I thought, the best way to do that is just to be on video and people see,
right,
first of all, that I do smile and that I do have, I do make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. And let's just put that out there. And what you see is what you get. And really, too, if people don't want to work with me, that's fine. I mean, you can't please everybody.
Sure.
And if I weed those people out because they're like, you know what, she's not for me, then that's fine. I don't mind that either. It's business. It's not a big deal. I don't take any of that personal.
We'll be right back with more from the Power of Design podcast.
The Power of Design podcast is brought to you by OSA Studio, a multidisciplinary design firm focused on creating impactful experiences through the power of design. We partner with our clients to create buildings, interior spaces, brands, and strategies that help you deliver a successful project. As a minority-owned firm, we are committed to building a diverse platform of curious and driven design professionals so we can together pursue our full potential. For more information, please visit us at www.osastudio.com.
Yeah, no, I think you're doing something right, because you're just using your authenticity and your natural personality and leveraging technology to amplify that. Mm-hmm. And I think it's working. And I really think, especially in the, I will say, construction industry and commercial real estate, people are not leveraging technology at all.
Yes,
they're just using it as a billboard, just to show what they're doing or show off their work, but not as a way to add value to the community, which I think that's one of the things that you're doing with all your content. I think it's exciting. I see you in this, you had a first phase of your life where you were so dedicated to your husband and your kids, probably doing things to keep the house together. And now is your time to shine. And I think you're taking advantage of that opportunity and making it huge.
I'm so excited that you recognize that, because I think that's exactly where I am. I've spent a lot of time doing what I needed to do to take care of everything at home, and even while I worked. But this is it. You're right. I'm out there, and it's this opportunity. Yes, I'm older, but that just brings a lot of experience that I can help people with. So that's so cool that you recognize that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things that you have, because of all the different diverse experiences you've been through, it's confidence. And confidence is, one is really not caring about what others say, which we all say we don't care, but we do.
Yeah.
But I think you get to the point I don't care what people think about me about that video. You're just doing it. You're doing it because you're trying to connect with people. It's fulfilling your purpose. And if somebody doesn't like it, well, there's not much we can do about that. And I think that level of confidence is huge in the business world, and also in your personal brand side, because that shows a lot that people buys into that. People
Yep.
want to do business with people that are confident, that they feel good about it, that they're real. People don't buy products or services. People buy experiences.
Yep.
And once
Yeah.
you tell them, you show them the experience they're gonna have, that's what's gonna attract people. So I think you have a really bright future ahead of you.
Thank you so much.
Tell me about office space. So you help people with office spaces, which is, it's a very important type of work. Like I do a lot of workplace projects. And when you think about office space, when you're an adult, modern adult, if you join the workforce, you'll probably be in an office space at least 8 hours a day, for 40 years. So you're going to spend most of your life inside an office space. So it's huge. The impact of office spaces in modern life is huge. What do you think are the main components of the ideal office space?
So you're right. It's those people live there, basically. So the main components that need to have are some privacy and some collaboration space and cleanliness and safety. And I think each business is different in how they achieve those things and really what is their bottom line and what are they trying to produce and what types of people do they have. And so as an example of how there needs to be privacy and collaboration. So in our office, we have property management on kind of one side of the office, and then we have our brokers and our marketing team on the other side of the office. And the folks who are in property management, so we've got accountants and lease administrators. And so they need some time to be able to put their head down and focus and get budgets done and things like that. So their side works a little bit different than ours. We have more of a open collaboration space, but then we have a lot of private offices where brokers can go behind closed doors and, do the deals that they need to do. So I think if we put the marketing people over on the accounting side, that wouldn't work because it's just a different type of personality and a different type of the way they do business. And so it's so individual. And I think that's what people need to think. They can't look at, if I'm an accounting firm, I don't want to look at Google necessarily and say, well, I need to replicate this to bring in talent, because it's just a different business model. So as long as you can find a way for people to have privacy if they need it, that they have a place to come together and have conversations and figure things out together when they need to do that. If they have a place that they feel safe and whatever that looks like, depending on, what's happening in the business. And then right now it's super important to remember like the whole cleanliness thing and like being able to make sure that we can provide safety that direction too, that people feel like they're comfortable and they're not going to get sick coming into a location. So that's what I think the biggest takeaway should be, is that please don't look at anybody else's office to say, this is the way I need to do things in my business, unless it's literally the exact same business and that probably, you can take some ideas from it, but please don't say that this is what I have to replicate to make it my business successful.
Yeah, and it's hard to really create, a high level of customization in an office setting, because when you look at the typical office setting that we use today, it's a very old model. It's, your choices are private office, open office, small conference room, big conference room, and open area, pantry, restrooms. And they're like probably 8 or 10 pieces of that puzzle. And everything is just a combination of those pieces in different proportions. What I think has been interesting in the latest trends is where now we're realizing that the office, since we spend so much time in there, it's a place where we're still living life. We're not pieces of a machine going to perform this task and then return. We're still living, we're still interacting with others. So this whole wave of like more hospitality or residential feeling coming to the office, I think it's changing a lot of things, more relaxed. Even with finishes, they look more residential. They're more couches because we realize that we're still living life where we're at work.
Yeah, and I think when I'm talking to landlords, if we have a multi-tenanted building and there's a lobby, that's been the conversation, is like, let's make this feel a little more hotel-like, where people can come in and they feel like they can lounge around and have an extension of that office space, because then that just gives them one more place to work, one more place to network, one more place to have lunch. Just opens up a lot of options. And so, yes, it's maybe not that ROI that they're looking for, a specific number, but I think having an amenity like that where they're kind of thinking outside of, yes, somebody's going to have their own little office space, but what can we do in the building that will make it more homey for them, and that they'll, enjoy coming to work because of the extra stuff that they have in the building. That, and then just any other opportunity to do some sort of fitness, something, even if it's, what I love is having open stairwells or open stairs so that people don't feel like that if they went to the stairwell, it's going to be dark and creepy, but and just give them an opportunity to get some steps in, little things like that, because just sitting at your desk all day is so monotonous. And if there's a stairwell there that looks inviting, then maybe they'll use it instead of taking the elevators, and just little stuff like that can make a big difference.
Yeah. What do you personally like in terms of design trends and looks?
So I at first really was liking the clean lines and everything, but I kind of gravitate more towards injecting nature into the space somehow. That biophilia is, I think, super important. And I know that there's different ways to do that. You don't have to have just actual real plants everywhere. If that's the case, you can just have some other colors, and it doesn't have to be so stark and minimalistic, I think. That's what I gravitate towards. I think it's funny because we had this, you can go into some buildings and see where they tried in these common area lobbies to make it almost like a forest. And it dates it to like the early 90s or something. So I see where they were trying to do that, but I think now there's different ways of being able to bring that in, not just into the common areas, but into each individual office, and going from there. Any kind of something that's different within an office. Like I have one of my spaces has a spiral staircase that goes up to a mezzanine, which I just think is really cool because it's different. You would never see that. I would never see that anywhere else. So having some little feature in the office that gives it some personality, I think is great. And I don't know what there are some trends coming out that maybe I don't know about that you should share with me. How about that?
They're secret. No. The thing is, the interesting thing with trends is that, usually somebody sees something and they build one nice project somewhere, and then it's all over the internet and everybody wants to do that. So it's very common, and you can see everybody kind of following the trends, which they're interesting, but sometimes they're just, fads. There's some things that people do it because everybody's doing it. So, like right now, everybody's doing, a lot of black, like black hardware, black frames, and, very high contrast with white surfaces, very open, and wood, which is nice. Like 5 years ago, you wouldn't see that. Now that's very common. But I think the two key elements is one, what you're mentioning, like adding green to the office space is huge. And, one of the biggest barriers with that has been maintenance, because nobody wants to maintain plants, and you need water and you need to take care of the plants. So that's just like adding some extra work to the equation. But I think it really makes a huge difference in spaces. And I think the other side will be technology. We use technology with computers, phones, kind of to do our work. But I think more and more technology is really impacting the way workplace is being designed. Now we can start like measuring with sensors like occupancy. Let's say conference room, a typical conference room, I think is used like 5% of the time. So it's wasted space. It's a space that is not being utilized. So how do you repurpose and reuse real estate in a way where you're using it, at least more than 50% of the time? It's like cars. Like we own cars, but we use our car probably 2 or 3% of the time. The rest of the time they're parked and they're in a parking lot. They're doing nothing. So there is a huge change that's going to come, I think, in the next 5 to 10 years, where we're going to really be conscious about utilization of space. And that's where concepts like, ride sharing and maybe not owning a car ever. You just, take some kind of Uber type of transportation. And then the co-working aspect also, and sharing office space with other businesses. I think that's going to be the next transformation, where it's real collaboration and best utilization of the resources we have.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you're right on about that. And if we can too look at the environmental impacts of not just cars, but then having to have big parking lots and parking garages and all these things that go along with a building just to accommodate somebody driving in and then sitting their car all day, while they're working. That could change a lot of things too, and kind of change the landscape. So I think you're right on about that. And even I'm hoping that buildings that have been, not necessarily renovated, in the past 10 years or whatever the case is, that landlords will start to see the benefit to them by installing more technology, even little things like the light switches that turn on and off, when somebody walks in a room. And so it's little things like that, LED lights, that we still have a lot of buildings in our market that could use an upgrade. So I don't know how far the really cool technology is going to go. Hopefully those Class A buildings will get that, just start integrating it and going from there. And then as the tenants come in, that they're able to integrate that technology as well into their individual spaces.
There is a lot of conversation today about diversity and inclusion in our, in our world, but also in our industry, because it's typically been not very diverse. I'm a first generation immigrant. And my business is a minority-owned business, and I found a lot of new things in the marketplace that I'm like, oh my God, like I never expected this. It's usually not as as open as you think. So I think we have long ways to go, but I also see it as a huge opportunity to make a change. What have you seen in the industry, and what are your thoughts about that topic?
So interestingly enough, I'm working on my master's degree in public administration. And what I had to do last class was a research proposal. And my topic that I chose was increasing diversity and inclusion in one of our local organizations. It's called the Hampton Roads Association of Commercial Real Estate, HR ACRE. And I was talking to the incoming president to this organization. And he quoted, our board is lily white. Our membership is pretty much white. It's a bunch of older white guys or white women. And how do we reach out to anybody else? Like, why are we missing this segment of our population? And so after talking to him and having some conversations with some key people who are actually seeing human resources person from Phillips Edison up in Ohio. She has this program that she's put together to help with that. And really it's an outreach to the universities and making sure that people of color, people of all backgrounds and races and everything know what commercial real estate and all the ancillary industries, what we have to offer. Because she was saying that she thinks that it could be that people don't know what's out there, first of all, and how to get involved, or then they see, okay, people are not like us. They don't look like us. They don't talk like us. They don't, they don't relate. And so they're less likely to get involved. So it's still an issue. And I, having literally just researched this to see kind of where I can help out with this organization, I know that even we've got a lot of women that are coming in. That's great, but it's mostly white women. And it's commercial real estate brokerage and these other industries around that, a lot of times are legacy careers because their families were in it. And so they just follow up in their footsteps. And so knowing that, and knowing that it's the young people who their parents have done this, well, then how do we reach out to other folks? So there are some people who are doing a really great job down in Atlanta. There's a minority-owned company, and they're doing fantastic in brokerage down there. And so I think it's just looking to what are people doing that's working, and how can we, tap into that, and how can we be genuine about it? Because diversity is one thing, but inclusion is a whole nother thing. Like, you can't bring in people who just are diverse and then they don't feel included, or they don't feel that their voices are being heard. So you have to have people who genuinely see the value in creating a more diverse environment and making that happen and putting their money where their mouth is, and then making everybody feel included when they're there. So we've got a long way to go. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, no, but I think it's good that we're talking about it. And I'm at the other side, and for me it's been interesting because I'm a first generation immigrant. So when I came here first, your first reaction is like, how do I fit in and assimilate the culture, right? So I used to work in restaurants and doing all kinds of work, everything that I needed to do, learning English, doing all things. And then as I started kind of integrating myself and progressing in society, I try to fit in more, right? Fit in, so you're accepted. And I got to a point where I realized that I was kind of losing my identity because I was trying to fit in too much. And many times, when I was younger, I found myself in business meeting, for example, when I realized that everybody was talking about something, there was some situation or a problem, and I always had a way to see it that it was different. And I didn't say anything because I thought I was wrong. I thought, well, maybe I'm missing something here. But later on, I realized, oh, wow, no. That's what I bring to the table, because I have a different background, a different culture. I grew up with different set of circumstances that gives me a very unique perspective to problem solving. So that was a huge realization in my life because that had given me a lot of confidence. I feel much better. Even podcasting, like I didn't want to start a podcast because I was very self-conscious about my accent. And I was like, who's gonna listen to this? Like, yeah, they don't understand sometimes what I'm saying, but I had to get to the point where, like, you know what? I don't care. Whoever wants to listen, they listen, and I'm just doing what I need to do. So I think there is a lot of things that are happening that create that, but I don't know. Maybe we need to do something together in terms of that, because I think there are a lot of opportunities to open the conversation for people that they don't realize that the opportunity is there.
Yeah, that's what I think is too, is that I think that, like my colleague was saying, that they just don't realize that the opportunities are there, that what types of jobs are available. And so I feel like in our industry, we kind of keep things to, so close, and we don't really give up. People are scared to give up their secrets or whatever the case is. But I think if we're a little more open about what we do and how we do it, and then just put it out there. So commercial real estate, and you've probably seen this, we don't do a lot of stuff on the internet. Like residential real estate, they're so good at putting themselves out there and putting their business out there, and everybody knows what they do, but we are just not like that in this industry. So I think that's been part of the problem, that we've been slow to adopt some very strategic things that could have helped along the way. And so people don't realize what exactly we do and how they could get involved.
Well, Nicole, thank you so much for your time today. I'm very happy to see your progress, and I think you're gonna do great things. I'm excited and motivated by everything you're doing. And I look forward to stay in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for having me. And I'm looking forward to seeing you take over the world. You're going to, start going up the East Coast and go national. And it's going to be fantastic. So I can't wait for that.
Sounds good. Thanks so much. Thank you for listening to the Power of Design podcast. Remember to rate and review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Find out more about Jack and Osa Studio at osastudio.com and follow us on Instagram at The Power of Design Podcast. Thank you.